Even though it's one day early, let's get to some questions from the listeners.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuning into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. And you can catch us on wherever you listen to podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering how this channel works, I bring you episodes Monday through Friday, though as you can tell, with us doing a mailbag segment on a Thursday, I will not be doing an episode tomorrow. I will be going on my bachelor trip over the weekend, so probably won't have too many updates from me, but I'll be back to normal Monday through Friday when I get back from that bachelor trip. But you can count on the Locked On Royals postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo, and he goes live for about 15 to 20 minutes at the conclusion of all of the Royals games this season. Now, before we get started, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the U.S. Visit 5hewin.com for rules and entry. No purchase necessary, excludes the Masters tournament, and it ends this Halloween, October 31st, 2025. We have about 45 to 50 questions to get to, and if I miss anybody's question, just respond below to this YouTube video, and I'll try to answer it while I'm sitting at the airport waiting to come back on Sunday evening. First question is coming from DJ. Why did Q leave Sam Long in after throwing 40 pitches with Taylor Clark available versus Simeon and Higashioka, the worst move he has made all year? Well, to get it out of the way, Taylor Clark was not available. He had thrown earlier in the game and went an inning and a third or inning and a two-thirds scoreless. And I did talk to Q after the game, asked him that question. It was more about depth purposes. Sam Long was out there to squeeze one more inning out of that bullpen, and then maybe the Royals could have walked it off in the bottom of the 10th, but they wanted to save both Estevez and Falter for extra innings. I understand that's going to upset a lot of people, but the Royals are playing a lot of games in a row, and what they need more than games like that is for starters to go a little bit deeper into the game, and I talked to Noah Cameron as well after, and he wasn't as pleased with his outing. I mean, to only go 4 2/3, it did put the bullpen in the tough spot, and some bullpen guys didn't have their best stuff. But also, I mean, we can put blame on Q. That's what you do for managers, and you can understand the logic, but the move didn't work out, and it did cost the Royals the game when it was all said and done. This one's coming from Victor. Do we even bring Cags back when Q seems to be setting his lineup? I do believe he's going to be back. I doubt it will be the exact same role that he had prior to the injury, just because the Royals have more depth. They've got more outfielders. When he is recalled, I would imagine that we'll see him against right-handed pitchers and probably in place of John Rave or Nick Lofton in the lineup. This one is coming from A and B. The most clutch Royals this season have been number 1, Freddie Fermin, number 2, Nick Lofton, number 3, Jonathan India, and then 4 through 39, the rest of the Royals, and the last one being Bobby Witt Jr. Do we agree or disagree? Why has he been bad in high-leverage situations this season when he was great last year? I wouldn't say that he's been the worst in high-leverage spots. I mean, go back, a few nights ago when he had the 2-run home run in the 8th inning. I know that's a one-off, maybe a one circumstance there, but Bobby Witt Jr. is still the guy I would want up there in every high-leverage spot. He hasn't been as good as he was last year, but we're also asking him to be better than a 330 average, 30 home run season, over 100 RBIs, and hitting over 300 with runners in scoring position. Bound for some regression there, but hopefully down the last half of this season, he can come through and maybe over 50% of those opportunities. This one is coming from Franzen. Should Cags be a September call-up? Rave has been somewhat solid. I don't see John Rave going anywhere, and that's why I believe Cags will be a September call-up, because you won't have to make any moves. I don't see them sending Lofton down for Cags because that takes away a right-handed bat off the bench. So I'd imagine when his rehab time is up, which ironically will be September 1st, that is when he's going to be recalled. This one is coming from Bryce. Based on Q's comments on Cags, does he stay in AAA? But if he returns, who goes down? So yeah, we've gotten a couple Cags questions that kick off the show. If I see any more, I'll probably just refer back to my answer. There's a chance if somebody did get injured that he would be the first call. I mean, he's been tearing it up in AAA. Easiest thing, I believe, for the roster, though, is to not make any of those roster decisions and just wait until September 1st to make that call. Next one here is coming from Matt. Do you think Colt will pitch again this season? Is it worth bringing him back if we're fighting for a playoff spot? Have a great time this weekend and go Royals. Well, thanks for the kind words, Matt, and I definitely will be having a great time here. But I will say, or a great time there, I should say, I do believe that if he's healthy and there's no chance of a setback, then yes, we will see Cole Reagans pitch again this season. He did throw only 35 pitches in his last bullpen outing, and for him to get back into the rotation, he's probably going to need to get up to 75 to 80 pitches. And then you ask yourself, is that worth a turn in the rotation? I mean, we saw how Cole was before the injury. He was struggling. If you've got a rotation that is pitching well at that point, then maybe you just slow play it there. But if he is able to help this playoff push and he is healthy, I would say that he will pitch again this season, but he's still got a ways to go before he will be fully ready to take the mound in Kansas City. Next question's coming from Camaro. Can this team reach 88 or 89 wins? Well, there are, what would there be, 37 games left or maybe 36 games? I think it's 35, actually. Tomorrow, there will be 35 games left, or I guess after that game, it'll be 34. They need to win 24 to get 89 wins. That's a pretty impressive stretch. That'd be 24-10. I mean, they'd absolutely be making the postseason if they went 24-10 over the last 34. The goal, in my opinion, is 86. You win 21 more games. You go 21 and 13. I believe that feels very, very doable with the way they've been playing. So I would say that's a better mark than 88 or 89. To answer your question, no, I don't believe they can get to 88 or 89 wins. Next question is coming from Michael. Does anybody know how I can watch the Royals? Well, if you have cable, you should still have the FanDuel Sports Network channel, unless you haven't been watching them all season long. If you've got streaming services, I would try Amazon Prime. You just pay the little subscription package and you can get all of the Royals games. There's the FanDuel Sports Network app that you can do your subscription through there. I know they make it kind of tough on people to access it, and that's always been an unfortunate part about the new way of baseball and how fans are able to watch their own team. There's also the MLB TV package if you're not in a blackout area that you'd be able to watch the Royals. And then if you ever want to go to a bar, I'm sure that they will have the Royals on if you do live in the Kansas City area. So those would be all my suggestions there on how to watch them this year, or at least the last couple games of the year, the last 34. This one is coming from Justin. Got to keep Frazier, and huge boost to everything the Royals are doing well. Frazier is the man. Well, so not so much of a question, but I would say that Adam Frazier has been a big part of this team, and who knows, maybe in the offseason, the Royals could look into bringing him back. See if we have any more on YouTube. I don't believe we do, so we'll now jump over to Twitter before we hit our first break. This one's from Jeff. With 10 games left in August, 1 versus the Rangers, 6 versus the Tigers, 3 versus the White Sox, what is the low bar the Royals can go to still be a real contender? Also, have you ever caught a foul or home run ball? For the last part of that question, I didn't catch it personally. My dad did, and I ended up throwing it back. It was opening day 2010. The Angels were in town. Hochevar was pitching, and Jeff Mathis, former catcher, homered to left field. Dad caught the ball. It was freezing that day as well. Handed it to me. People were chanting to throw it back. I threw it back. Gordon got it, tossed it to the ball boy, and they gave it to another kid down the line. So I guess it wasn't the smartest move, but it was just a Jeff Mathis home run off of Luke Hochevar. So it's not like I was catching a home run ball from Barry Bonds. And then for the other part of the question, let's see, that is 10 games. 5-5, I think, would still be fine because you'd be 3 games over 500. I'm not going to be complaining too much about that. I would hope for better. 6-4 would be far more manageable over those 10 games, just to add an extra game into being over 500. But to stay afloat, I'd imagine playing 500 ball over those 10 games would be just fine. Let's get to our next one here from Randy. Will any of the players on the IR or September call-ups give them a boost? Jack Caglianone's going to have a chance. Luinder Avila is going to have a chance. Maybe Stephen Kolek could give the bullpen some length. And that's going to be important based off of what we saw last night in the game, where the Royals had to leave Sam Long out there for 40 pitches because their bullpen was so thin. They're going to need some extra help there, and I'd imagine that they can manage it a little bit differently if they have 2 extra guys or maybe just 1 extra guy in the bullpen. So those 3 names I just mentioned, those would be the guys I believe that could give the Royals a boost. Let's take our first break of the show. When we come back, still a lot of questions to get to next on Locked On Royals. You are tuning to Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can catch us on wherever you listen to your podcast. Want to tell you about Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorizations of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. Next question on Twitter is going to be coming from Brenda. Why not call up Carter Jensen? See, I just don't feel there needs to be a rush for Carter Jensen. You could make a very strong case they rushed Jack Caglianone and it didn't help the offense. I mean, Carter just got the AAA a few months ago, and even if he was hitting 350 or 400, where are the at-bats going to be coming from? I would hope that when Carter Jensen gets called up, he is catching nearly every single day for the Royals, which I'm on more of the slow play it side. I'm okay if he doesn't make his debut until the summer of next year. You've got Luke Mailey behind the plate. He catches a lot of these guys well, and he plays once a week. Salvador Perez is going to be the catcher the rest of the way. And next year, you can have that conversation if you want them splitting time. But I just don't see the Royals calling up Carter Jensen. They probably will slow play a little bit more because Jack Caglianone was somebody they really rushed through AAA. The next one here is coming from Old School Kansas. Can Cag still retain his rookie status for next year? If so, how many more games can he play this year and still be eligible to be a rookie? He's at 40 games, so I'd actually imagine that he will have rookie status next year. I would have to double check on that. I don't have it off the top of my head, but if he was called up on September 1st, you're only talking about 25-ish games, and I wouldn't count on him playing all of them. So if he's getting into the 60-ish range, I'm pretty sure he still would have his rookie status there. But I would need to double check on that. That's a great question. I just don't want to lead you in the wrong direction here and saying I'm 100% confident and then being wrong on that answer. So for now, I'm going to guess that he still would have his rookie status because he has now missed a chunk of time. This one is coming from Cabo. I love Salvi, but I cannot see why people think he is a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. He has a 35 WAR, OPS of 760, and OPS plus of 105. By comparison, Jorge Posada has a WAR of 43 and an OPS of 848, an OPS plus of 121 with 4 rings and a third-place MVP finish, and he never came close. That's really the thing. Catchers are always going to have a tough time to get in. And for Jorge Posada, I did believe that, or I was one of the people that thought he should have belonged in the Hall of Fame. And for Salvador Perez, if he puts together 3 more years where he's a 30 home run hitter and it's all with Kansas City, I believe some of those voters are just going to want to put him in the Hall of Fame. Not they didn't like Jorge Posada, but if he has 3 more years of being a legitimate offensive threat and he's still catching games behind the plate, he's going to have a very good chance to get in there because he's so beloved in all of baseball. But I still am not there yet. I would not say he's a shoo-in. And even if he does get in, it's not going to be that unanimous vote where it's just so obvious. It's going to be an uphill battle from this point on. And it really comes down to how is he going to fare in maybe the last 3 to 4 years of his career. This one's coming from Mark Grogan. Was Sam left in too long? We're talking about last night's game. He was 40-plus pitches. Matt Quatrero said it was a tax bullpen out there. The only guys they had available on Wednesday night was Carlos Estevez at that point and Bailey Falter. Personally, I would have been fine going to Estevez, and if you had to go in extra innings, you turn it over to Falter, and if you lose that game, all right. With the ghost runner rule, you're not going to be going into 13 or 14 innings anyway. I would have liked to play for the bottom of the ninth there, but I can also understand the logic where you're playing a lot of games in a row and you need to make sure that bullpen is as fresh as possible. Michael Lorenzen's also throwing, later on this afternoon, and you want to make sure that he has a bullpen behind him in case he only goes, 4-ish innings in the series finale against Texas. This one is coming from Taoist Master. Can the home run barrage continue? I mean, the weather being warm has helped. We saw that last year as well when the Royals started to pick up offensively. You could have that correlation to the weather and it heating up in Kansas City. They've got guys with power in that lineup. Bobby has power. Vinny has power. Salvi does. Mike Yastrzemski has power. Randall Grichuk has power. And then you can even have someone like Adam Frazier or Jonathan India run into one every once in a while. But it's a breath of fresh air, considering this lineup could not put one over the fence for the first 2 months of the season, it seemed. Next one is coming from Bryce. Prediction of who gets called up when the rosters expand. I have full confidence Jack Caglione is going to be the position player they call up. I'm now torn for the pitching side of things. I either believe it's going to be Luinder Avila or it's going to be Stephen Kolek. I would lean toward Kolek because he's got so much more experience this season than Luinder Avila does, and to have an extra long reliever out there is better for the Royals, someone that can go out there and give you 3 or 4 innings of work. Kolek can do that because he's also still stretched out to start. So my picks will be Caglione and Stephen Kolek when the rosters expand on September 1st. Bosnat's question. Based on the remaining schedule, who do the Royals have the best chance of catching? Seattle plays us 3 games in KC next month, so that seems favorable. In my opinion, it's Seattle or Boston, and they are really neck and neck. The only reason I would maybe lean Boston a little bit more is that Boston's schedule is incredibly tough, and they're going through it right now. They're in a little bit of a rut, and I wonder if some of that shine, some of that glitter, if you will, right after they traded Rafael Devers and they played so well and they were packing the place at Fenway and they were having all these walk-off wins, they've come back down to earth a little bit. And I always wondered if they would, to feel the effects of not having a hitter like Rafael Devers. So I lean more toward Boston because Seattle still has the pieces in place. I believe they just had a really rough stretch of games here, and they're going to be able, once they get back home, to get on track. However, Seattle does have that history of struggling late in the season. But those two teams really neck and neck for me in having the best chance of catching up. Shannon's question, if Cole Reagans returns before the end of the season, who does he replace in the rotation? Is it as simple as moving Lorenzen into the bullpen? I wouldn't say it's as simple as that, because if Michael Lorenzen's throwing well and he's going, 5 innings, maybe 2-run ball or less every single time out, who are you really wanting to take out in the starting rotation? If Berger's throwing well, Lugo's throwing well, Waka, Cameron, and Lorenzen, I don't think you need to force the issue with Cole Reagans because there's no guarantee he returns to form. Maybe you go with the 6-man rotation, or maybe you put Cole in this hybrid role almost where he could be an opener for Lorenzen or he could come in after Lorenzen. I just don't know with where he's at in his rehab process if it makes sense to force the issue. We got to get him out there starting games unless, of course, he's completely stretched out, he feels great, and he can return to form. But that's a lot of ifs, of course, in that sentence I just had. Okay, let's get to one more before our final break of the show. Adam Frazier's question, or Adam Frazier enthusiast, who do you think falls out of the wild card so the Royals can get in? Yeah, referring back to my previous answer there, Boston has a really tough schedule. We knew that about the second half, and Seattle just has that history of collapsing late. We talked about it on last night's episode, it was last night's episode. The Royals are not only going to need to keep winning, they're going to need some luck. They're going to need the Red Sox or Mariners to lose a series to somebody that they just have no business losing to. I looked at this series for Seattle coming up this weekend. They got the Athletics in town. If the Athletics can find a way to win that series, that's the luck I'm talking about there. But those two teams, in my opinion, neck and neck, that have the best chance of falling out of playoff contention, opening up a spot for the Royals to grab one. Let's take our final break of the show. When we come back, we'll wrap it up with our final set of questions next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can catch us on wherever you listen to your podcasts. For our final sponsor we want to talk about, want to tell you just a little bit more about 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This great ginger and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies and making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. Golf is all about the good times with good people and good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 of any golf tournament in the U.S. Tee up that trip and visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament, and it ends this Halloween, October 31st, 2025. For the final set of questions, we're going to kick it off with DK. Any word on the progress of Kyle Wright and Alec Marsh, and how do they fit into next season after signing Lugo for a long-term deal and the trade that gave additional pitching depth to the roster? For Alec Marsh, just kind of turned into a wash of a season. He would try to ramp back up, and then he'd have a setback, and he'd have to start all over again. So he can still fit into the plans next year. I do wonder, though, if they try to move into a full-time bullpen role. That feels like a better spot for him than trying to compete in the rotation, just to see if that stuff can really play up in the bullpen. I always believed it could. He's got that wipeout sweeper. He's got a fastball that can play up to the mid-upper 90s. That feels like the plan going into spring training next year. As for Kyle Wright, I'm sorry. I don't see him really ever staying healthy enough to pitch in Kansas City. It was a good gamble. You know, you traded Jackson Kowar for him. You tried to see if he could recreate a little bit of what he did in 2022, but next year it'll be 3 full seasons since the last time he threw a pitch at the big league level. I mean, that's just too much time to really count on someone to be involved in your pitching depth. Charles' question, how are our playoff odds looking? This team has come alive, and they're giving me a little too much hope. Well, it's still down in the mid-20%, but I would say it is a lower total, but they also were at 5 or 6% like 2 weeks ago. So things can change drastically, and if the Mariners and Red Sox continue to lose and the Royals can stay on this hot stretch, that's only going to keep increasing each and every day. Now, as I'm doing this episode, they are 2.5 games back of a playoff spot. By the end of the weekend, they could be 5.5 back, or they could be in a playoff spot. That's how quickly this can all change, but there's so much of the season left to go. You still have a month and a half. A lot can happen there. So I wouldn't be too focused on playoff odds until the Royals would actually grab a playoff spot, and then you can start to evaluate other teams' schedules and how likely it would be that the Royals could hang on to one of those final wild card spots. Jason's question, do you think the Royals will offer contracts to Schreiber and or Harvey next year? I like both, but wouldn't want to overpay based on our depth of young relievers in the minors. I would say no to Harvey. He just can't stay healthy. Schreiber, it wouldn't surprise me. I could also see Schreiber having a bit of a market. I mean, the Royals desperately needed somebody that consistent that could just level out the bullpen, and he's been everything they could have hoped for in the 2 years he's been here in Kansas City. Not lights out, not overpowering, but he's been what he was for the Red Sox in that great year in 2022 before he went down a little bit in 23 and the Royals got him in 24. So I wouldn't mind seeing Schreiber back. And when he's healthy and he's throwing strikes, that's a really nice piece to have for the bullpen. You can never take for granted reliable and trustworthy arms. I know he's had his blowups before, but it just seems like when he is on and he goes on those hot stretches, he's somebody that you can absolutely count on to get big outs. Hence why he was out there to close the game on Tuesday night. He is their third string closer. When Estevez is not available and Ursa can't go, John Schreiber is the guy usually to step up in that spot. DG's question, do you still see a possibility of Reagan's being back in the rotation if this team stays close to the wild card race? Yeah, just going to refer back to my previous answer there. I don't believe they need to force anything. If he gets up to 50 or 60 pitches, I'd much rather them just throw him in the bullpen here. And that actually can change up my answer a little bit about September call-ups. If the Royals, don't want to add Stephen Kolek or they don't want to add Luinder Avila, Cole Reagans can be the guy they add to that bullpen. They also could just replace Sam Long with Cole Reagans, and that might be the better option because it would be lefty for a lefty. Next one is coming from Caleb, and we still got more than a few to go, so I don't want to waste any time here. Caleb asked, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but if we make the postseason, who would you like to face in the wild card round? Given the options, I think Houston would be our best realistic matchup. It's just so tough to go win at Minute Maid Park, to be honest with you. I would rather it be, there's not a perfect pick there. I would say Seattle would be the team just because they're not as familiar with the postseason. It'd be tough to go. It's going to be tough to beat anybody there, but I would probably say Seattle is a better team to face than Houston would be. I know how successful Houston can be in the playoffs, and you have to go to, I guess now it's Daikin Park. That place can get so loud. And I know the Royals had success in 2015, but that was now 10 years ago. So different team out there, and the Royals would have their work cut out for them. But I still would enjoy the fact that the Royals would actually get into the postseason. I don't really care who they would play. This one's from Danny. Do you see the Royals hanging on to Falter? I feel like he was a pickup of necessity with guys on the IL this year, but maybe could be flipped as a part of a package deal in the offseason. I see him being held on to. Nothing wrong with some depth there. He is out of options, so he'll have to make the team out of camp. And if he doesn't have a good spring training, then maybe he is that DFA candidate that you just cut your ties with and see if anybody else takes a chance on him. But I wouldn't say they'd involve him in a trade. It's nice to have some pitching depth going into Surprise next year. Sports Gambler's question. After this win streak, what do you give the Royals playoff chances? If I remember right, you were around 20% a week ago. The Royals have made up some ground in the wild card standings. So I'm going to create my own percentages. I would say that 25% is not far off. If the Royals can win today and go take a series in Detroit, I'm like up to 30 to 35%. But I'm not going to go too far off what Fangraphs and Baseball Reference are saying. Until they get to 50% or slightly over that, I can't really buy into them getting through this thing all the way. But the fact they've made it entertaining, I guess I can live with it, because it would suck to go into September with this team not really playing for much. And it's absolutely going to be an important September, whether they are in a playoff spot or they're still, right outside of one, about 2 to 3 games back. This one's from Aiden. If the Royals re-sign Yaz, what do you think should be the plan for Cags position-wise? I would like for him just to be a first base right fielder / DH. Going in the next year, if he was your full-time DH, I'm not going to complain too much. Now, with Matt Quattro's lineups, he does like to move guys around a lot, so he wouldn't be pigeonholed into just the DH role. But on a day-to-day basis, if they were to re-sign Yaz needs to be in right field, and Cags probably needs to be just focusing on hitting as a DH. This one is coming from Jason. When Cags comes back up, who loses the most ABs? Rave has been pretty good since the All-Star break. We don't want to mess with Yaz, the Yaz Grichuk platoon. So does Q make Salvi play catcher every day so Cags can DH, or swap DH and first base with Vinny? Good problem to have. Absolutely good problem to have. They're, like I said with Cole Reagans, they're not going to force it in there. Jack Caglione's not going to be ripping at bats from people and continue to hit 140. If he's hitting better and he's giving him that power element, then yeah, he'll take more at bats from John Rave and Nick Lofton would be my guess. But he's not taking any at bats from Salvi, Vinny, or Mike Yastrzemski against right-handed hitters and Randall Grichuk against left-handed hitters. So he would probably be taking more at bats from John Rave more than anybody else. Brody's question, what does a postseason rotation with Reagans look like? Obviously, Lorenzen loses his regular season spot, but when we get down to a 4-man rotation, there isn't an easy choice to go to in the pen. I would be shocked if Cole Reagans was anything more than the number 4 starter in a playoff rotation just because he had so much time off. I guess they would go with Lugo and Waka, or they're really interchangeable for a game 1 and game 2. And then Noah Cameron would be game 3. Those would be your top 3. And then, maybe it would be Ryan Bergert over Cole Reagans. But I just don't know if I can go as far to say that he's in the postseason plans. If they get there, it would clearly be with the help of the guys they have in the rotation right now. And maybe Cole Reagans becomes that hybrid type guy out of the bullpen for the postseason. RJ's question, I know the long ball has been a big part of our game lately, but I also see more situational hitting and scratching across a run when needed. How much do you think our veteran trade pieces, Frazier and Yaz, have to do with the improved approach to scratching a run when needed? I believe they do have an impact, especially Adam Frazier. He's been so good with 2 strikes, putting the ball in play, hitting to all fields, and that can rub off on some other hitters. they're still having guys in the lineup that struggle with that. I did not think they were very good whatsoever in Wednesday night's game. We'll see what they look like later on today. But that veteran presence and just guys that have done it before, they understand what it takes. Maybe you're down 2 strikes, but there's a runner at third. Got to get somebody home. And those can be the differences in winning and losing a game. On Wednesday night, Maikel Garcia, who has been so good in that spot, had an opportunity with a runner at third and less than 2 outs to just drive in that run. He didn't. Then Nick Lofton grounded out to the pitcher, and the Royals ended up losing 6-3. If Maikel Garcia comes through there, you probably find a way to win that game with Erceg and Estevez closing it out. Ryan's question, can you see Carson Roccaforte being a better version of Isbel with the hitting speed and defense? If so, when? Love this question because Carson Roccaforte deserves his flowers. He's been really good in Double-A. Always liked him in that draft class. It just took him a little bit longer. He absolutely could be a little bit better than Kyle Isbel, but the defense is going to be where I'm going to be questioning it. I feel he can be a better hitter than Kyle Isbel and probably a better base runner, but Kyle Isbel is so great defensively in center field, and it's a tough task to be a top 10 defensive center fielder. I believe Roccaforte's a good defensive center fielder, but he hasn't patrolled Kauffman Stadium yet, and that's easier said than done. So for 2 of the 3, I absolutely believe he can be an upgrade over Kyle Isbel. The jury's still out on if he can match his defensive abilities. Caleb's question, do you think we sign Salvi to a new contract after the season? I could see us locking him up for another 2 years and moving him primarily to first base and DH, but is that a crazy thing to believe? Surely we wouldn't let the face of our franchise walk. I would say now, though, Bobby Witt Jr. is the face of the franchise, so I will say that they could probably restructure a deal. I don't see him just walking away, them declining the option. I'd imagine that he will be back next year on some sort of deal. This one's from CRKSO. Where do you think this team would be if they managed to land some of the higher floor outfielders like Yaz and Grichuk last offseason instead of giving at-bats to guys like Renfroe, MJ, and Biggio over the first month or two? Probably a little bit better, but it's also tough to predict some of those things to happen. But I can guarantee going in the next offseason, they're not going to be giving opportunities to guys like that. This one from Casey Preds fan. What do you think the Royals bullpen should ideally look like if they do end up making the playoffs? How they have it right now with Estevez in the 9th, Erceg in the 8th, Schreiber in the 7th. Maybe they can get Cruz back, Serpa against lefties in some of those high leverage spots, and then maybe having someone like Michael Lorenzen out of the bullpen or Cole Reagans. That would be what I would hope for if they got to that point. But you need to have that depth in the bullpen like they did last year. They just didn't have the offense to beat the Yankees in the ALDS. This one's from Brian. Is this type of year what we should expect from Bobby from here on out? I don't know if you should expect it. He can always do a little bit better, but maybe for the floor, hitting 290, that's 40 points lower than he was last year. You can pretty much always count on him to be one of the more valuable players in all of baseball. This one is from Craig. Thoughts on the closer situation? Erceg has given up a run, including tonight in the past few outings, and Estevez is the only truly reliable with a 3-run lead. What do you do with it? Can someone close going forward reliably? I mean, I just don't think the Royals' save situation is as dire as people make it out to be. Erceg and Estevez are fine. They haven't had the best of second halves, but there's no need to bump somebody out of the closer's role that has 32 saves. And yeah, Erceg struggled a little bit, but I feel he's going to be just fine. I'm really not too concerned with it. Royal Blazers question, how realistically do you think we could retain both Grichuk and Yaz next year? I believe it's very realistic. They would be affordable options, and as long as they like it in Kansas City, I'd imagine the Royals might try to work out a deal with at least one of them. Both of them, I guess we'll have to wait and see, but I don't see it being a super hot market for both of those outfielders. And now we got Chance from the postcast asking 2 questions. What do you think the alcoholic beverage of choice for the following players? Yaz, Bobby, Vinny, Reagans, and Cags. Probably a lot of beer guys there. I'm going to definitely say Cole Reagans is a beer guy. Let's go Caglione, and being from Florida. Oh, man. Let's go with something. What's a refreshing drink from down there? I'll go like a Moscow Mule. I'm getting too specific here. Then with Vinny, I'll go with wine. No, you got the Italian part of him, so I'll go with some red wine there. Then you have Bobby. He's a Texan, so probably beer. I'll go with a Budweiser there. And then Yaz, I believe it's the 805s, the special beer in San Francisco. I'll go with that. because even though he's an East Coast guy, which maybe I should probably pick something that has to do with New England, he was a Giant forever. So I'll say the 805 beer from San Francisco. I believe that it's 805 or 815, but I'm pretty sure it's 805. And then lastly, this one also is from Chance. Which Royals player do you think is most likely to get with an international superstar like Kelsey did with Taylor Swift? Problem is, a lot of these guys are married, so I really don't know. I mean, Aaron Crow was with Kesha, so that came out of nowhere. I will say, man, is there anybody young enough that's not married? Man, I might have to punt on this one because I honestly don't know who's all in a relationship and who's married. I guess I'll go with Michael Garcia. I have no idea if he's married or has a girlfriend or anything like that. So that'll be my pick there. But I saw a lot of people responding to that one. Most of the guys that were being said already have wives. So no, I don't think anybody's going to be reaching that Travis Kelce level of popularity and dating an international pop star like that. Okay, that'll do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second listen, find the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you for all the questions you guys sent in. I'll be off tomorrow and this weekend, but back on Monday recapping all of the Tigers series and looking ahead to the next series against the Chicago White Sox. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.